أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وكونوا مع الصادقين صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات بيجي محمد وعلى Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Continuing with this series of majalis, tonight inshallah, as it was announced, we will be commemorating the Shahadat of Sibt Akbar, the eldest grandson of Rasulullah, the embodiment of forbearance and patience, son of Ali and Butul, Imam Hasan Al-Mujtaba alayhi salatu wasalam. And for that reason, I chose this verse from Surah Tawbah, verse number 119, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing the mu'mineen by saying, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, ittaqullah wa kunu ma'as sadiqeen. That, O those who believe, O those who have brought iman, fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be with those who are sadiqeen. Mufassireen have unanimously mentioned that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He refers towards Sadiqeen, He's mentioning those who are the infallibles. And some have also mentioned that the word Sadiqeen over here is actually referring towards the word Ma'asumeen. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not use the word Ma'asumeen, instead He used the word Sadiqeen. Therefore we can understand that both of these words go together. And it is also, as far as the society is concerned, and for the kamal and the perfection of the society, the three ingredients which are very important are being discussed in these ayat of Quran. In this particular verse of 119 from chapter 9, Surah Tawbah, the three ingredients which are being mentioned, first is bringing iman, having faith. Second ingredient which is being mentioned, that it is not enough for you to just believe and have faith and think that you will be able to reach prosperity and have salvation. No. After having brought iman, the second stage which still remains for you is the concept of taqwa. That you have to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have to safeguard yourselves against the evil that exists, or whatever the meaning of the word taqwa that we find in the Mufassireen's translations and the commentaries of Quran. And even after having this fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the last ingredient which you must apply in order for a society to reach this perfection and kamal is to follow those who are referred to as sadiqeen. So we see that it is a threefold formula that you have to bring iman. You have to believe in it on your own, have this firm belief. Second, you have to elevate to the level of taqwa. And thirdly, is still having these two ingredients, you still got to look for the examples that are existing outside. Those who are the misdaq of the word sadiqeen, in order for you to be able to lead a life following their footsteps so that you also come out in prosperity. We also find that Mufassireen have unanimously regard Sadiqeen to be the household of Rasulullah, especially the Ma'asumeen alayhim salatu wassalam, following the demise of Rasulullah. The word Sadiqeen we see in one of the attributes of Rasulullah, that he was referred to as Sadiq. And also one of the attributes of our sixth Imam is also known as Ja'far as-Sadiq. But don't be fooled that if one is Sadiq, that the other one does not have the title of Sadiq, that it is only referring towards the sixth Imam or Rasulullah. No. Awwaluna Muhammad, wa awsatuna Muhammad, wa akhiruna Muhammad, wa kulluna Muhammad. This hadith itself is also self-explanatory. When Rasul says the first one, or the Ma'asum says the first one is Muhammad, the last one is Muhammad, the middle one is Muhammad. Rather, all of them are Muhammad. He's not talking about as far as their names are concerned. He's talking about as far as their character is concerned. So if you look at literally speaking, the first one is Muhammad because it is Muhammad al-Mustafa. The last one is Muhammad because it is Muhammad al-Mahdi. The middle one is Muhammad because it is Muhammad al-Baqir. All of them are Muhammad if you look at from the names perspective. But what the Prophet is mentioning over here is from the perspective of their character. They're all same, just like me, how I am Muhammad. Salawat bhiji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad par. Today, what I wanted to, or rather tonight, what I wanted to shed some light upon the fact that Prophet always referred to Imam Hasan as his son. On many occasions, we find ahadith such as when Prophet came to the house when Imam Hasan was born. Instead of saying, give me the son of Fatima or give me the son of Ali, he said, Hati ibni. He said, give me my son. He did not say, give me the son of Fatima. Right away, Prophet is mentioning or referring to Imam Hasan to be his own son. Secondly, we see in other hadiths where Prophet is mentioning in regards to both Imam Hasan and Imam Hussein, he says, Hadani ibnai or ibnai hadani imaman qa'ida aw qama. Both of these, my sons are imam, whether they're sitting or whether they're standing up. This is also a prophecy that Prophet is trying to mention, that whether one of them might be sitting, and sitting could be referring towards the peace that Imam Hasan makes, or standing up could be referred towards the rise that Imam Hussein ﷺ had. So it's sort of a prophecy that Prophet ﷺ is mentioning from the very beginning. Whether they might be sitting down or performing the peace, or whether they might be standing up, going towards the war, or rising up against the injustice, both of them are my sons, and both of them will be considered to be the imams of this ummah. On an occasion, we see once Prophet was in the masjid. This is where one of his companions by the name Anas was there as well. Prophet is sitting, he's speaking to the companions. Anas sees a child, a very young age, is playing around with Prophet. Sometimes he's on his lap, sometimes he's on his back. He's running around and so on and so forth. Right away, Anas thinks that this child might be bothering Rasulullah. He tries to grab the hand of the child to remove him or to take him away from Rasulullah. Rasulullah addresses him like this. He says, Ya Anas, da'a ibni wa thamarata fu'adi. O Anas, keep your hands away from my son, or stay away from my son, or the fruit of my heart. Inna man adha hasanan qad adhani. Indeed, the one who harms Hasan has harmed me as well. Again, the point that I'm trying to make over here is the word ibni that Prophet is using. He said, da'a ibni, stay away from my son, or leave my son alone. He did not say hafidi, my grandson, or anything of that sort. No, he referred to him as his own son. Why is it that Prophet ﷺ is mentioning the word ibn over and over? Because there will be a propaganda later on in history where people will try to remove this association that Rasulullah had with Imam Hasan and Imam Hussein. They will argue and propagate saying that how could you call Hasan and Hussein to be the sons of Rasulullah? Although on numerous occasions in history, Prophet proved that. One of the examples is Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi, who was known to be a very tyrant ruler of his time. He one day brings a person by the name Yahya ibn Ya'mur. When Yahya is brought in front of him, he was apprehended, he was in shackles. He says to Yahya, why do you constantly refer to Hasan and Hussein to be the sons of Rasulullah, where clearly they were the grandsons of Rasulullah? Why do you constantly refer to them as the sons of Rasulullah? He says, I have a dalil and a proof from Quran. He said, what Quran? He said, yeah, the same Quran which was revealed of Rasulullah. He said, which ayah? He said, have you not recited that verse from Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Hazrat Nuh and he says, وَنُوحًا هَدَيْنَاهُ مِنْ قَبْلِ. Nuh, whom we guided from before, وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِهِ, and from the zurriyat, and from the progeny, and from the children of Hazrat Nuh comes Dawuda, wa Sulaymana, wa Ayyuba, wa Yusufa, wa Musa, wa Haruna. The verse continues, wa Zakariya, wa Yahya, wa Isa, wa Ilyas. He said, these are the progeny or the children of Hazrat Nuh. He said, Hazrat Isa. Who was the father of Hazrat Isa? He was only born from a mother. There was no father of Hazrat Isa ﷺ. There was no father for Hazrat Isa, yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala still counts him to be the son of Hazrat Nuh. With so many mediums in between, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala considers Hazrat Isa, who didn't even have a father, to be the son of Hazrat Nuh ﷺ. How do you not consider Imam Hasan to be the son of Rasulullah when there's only one medium in between? Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad par. This is where the verse of Mubahila was also recited. He said, you want more proofs? I'll give you more proofs. Another proof where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to the sons or the grandsons of Rasulullah to be the ibn and the sons of Rasulullah is ayah Mubahila, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ta'alu abna'ana wa abna'akum. We'll bring our children and you bring your children. Now the discussion in regards to abna'ana is a lengthy discussion. I'm not going to go into that. But just the word ibn, which is we are talking about tonight, we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also uses the word ibn. It's the plural for ibn, which is abna, which means 3 or more. There was time or there was length in this verse that Prophet could have brought more than 3, but he only brings 2. Because he wants to show that there are only 2 sons that I possess. This is Hasan and Hussein. So even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is proving through this ayah that Imam Hasan is the son of Rasulullah. Don't consider him to be, although he's apparently the grandson of Rasulullah, but he's the son of Rasulullah. Over there, the verse of Tathir was also recited. He said, when you read the verse of Tathir, which says, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ. Who are these Ahl al-Bayt? So these Ahl al-Bayt includes these 5 individuals known as Panjtan, in which Rasulullah is one of them, Janab Sayyada is one of them, Amirul Mu'mineen is one of them, and 2 of these grandchildren of Rasulullah are also part of this ayat Tathir. What is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to say over here? He says, I want to get rid of any type of pollution from you and purify you in the best manner possible. Obviously, some of the Mufassireen, although every single Mufassir agrees upon the fact that this includes Imam Hasan and Imam Hussein. But some of them went ahead and added the wives of Rasulullah into this verse as well. Primarily, the reason is because the previous ayah and the ayah that is afterwards is talking about the azwaj and the wives of Rasulullah. They said this ayah which says Ahlul Bayt includes the other individuals or the wives of Rasulullah as well. Because if you look at the previous ayah, it talks about the wives. If you look at the ayah afterwards, it talks about the wives. Whether it's in the positive sense or the negative sense. But it is talking about the wives, therefore wives should also be part of Ahlul Bayt. We don't have any discussion about that. That is for another time. To prove that who was among these Ahlul Bayt, just one thing was enough, that when the event of Qisa took place, Janabi Salma was over there at that time. When she wanted to enter the Qisa, Prophet said, Anti ala al-haq. You are on righteousness, but you do not belong in this Qisa. This Qisa only belongs to these individuals who are currently underneath it. They say, okay, we understand that Imam Hasan and Imam Hussein are beneath this Qisa. The event is narrated by a very prominent ashab and the wife of Rasulullah as well. So yes, Imam Hasan and Imam Hussein are part of this Ahlul Bayt. When this verse was revealed, Imam Hasan and Imam Hussein, when we recite Hadith Qisa, and Hadith Qisa is usually recited on all of our occasions, even if it was recited tonight, that Imam Hasan walks in. Janab Salma says Imam Hasan walked in. Imam Hussein walked in and went to Prophet. A child who's able to walk has to be at least 2 years old or 3 years old in order for the child to be able to walk on his own. So when this ayat was revealed, it was, if Imam Hasan is born in the 3rd year of Hijrah, and Imam Hussein is born in the 4th year of Hijrah, when this ayat is revealed, at least it has to be the 6th year of Hijrah, if not more. So we see over here that Imam Hasan and Imam Hussein are walking into this Qisa. They're at least old enough to walk. So this ayat has to be revealed at least, if not more, in the 6th year of Hijrah. What am I trying to prove over here? That if you look at this ayat is revealed in the 6th year of Hijrah, some people say, well, yeah, we understand. But there was impurity in these individuals, and so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to purify them. Because if there wasn't any impurity, why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, I want to purify you? Just to go ahead and lower the status of Ahlul Bayt, disregarding the fact that Rasul is also among them. If you don't care for Hasan and Hussein, at least care for Rasulullah. He's part of this Qisa as well. He's in this Qisa as well. If you say that Hasan and Hussein, God forbid, were impure before and Allah has purified them now, the same question would go upon Rasulullah as well. Rasulullah is at the age of at least, at that time, in his late 50s, at the time of his death, he was 63. If this ayat is revealed 5 years before his death, he's got to be around 58 years old. Imam Hasan is 3. Imam Hussein is 2, for example. Ali is 30 years younger than Rasulullah. Janab Sayyida is probably 15 at that time, 14 at that time. The only person whom you're criticizing in this ayah by saying that they were impure before is the Zat of Rasulullah. Because he was the one who had lived longer before this ayah was revealed. Everyone else, aside from Rasulullah, lived to be longer after the purification of the verse of purification came. Only Rasulullah only lived for a few years after this verse was revealed. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad par. So Hasan and Hussein lived for another 40 to 50 years after this ayat was revealed. And secondly, from this ayah, if you understand that Allah's decision and desire is to purify them, that He says, I desire and I wish to purify. At one point, you and I desire to do something. At one point, you and I wish to do something. At one point, you and I make intentions. Sometimes our intentions are strong. Sometimes our intentions are not strong. Sometimes we end up fulfilling the task. Sometimes we don't fulfill the task. That shows how strong our intentions were. If our intentions were firm in what we wanted to do, we usually accomplish. And when our intentions were not as strong as they should be, we don't accomplish. We see this is the intention of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the wish of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the desire of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The desire of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the strongest desire there could be. There's no second thought in it. When Allah wants to do something, He accomplishes it. He doesn't leave it halfway like you and I would do. So in order for us to understand the fact that Imam Hasan in his life later on, after this verse was revealed, yes, if you consider him to be impure, God forbid, before the ayah, at least after the ayah, he's purified. So whatever Imam Hasan will do in his life after the verse of purification, you got to admit that he has been purified by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If he does something which you do not like, and you go ahead and criticize, you're not criticizing Imam Hasan's actions, rather you're criticizing the wish of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He had purified Imam Hasan alayhi salatu wasalam. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. That there might have been weakness, God forbid, in the desire of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Imam Hasan went ahead and performed such an act, God forbid. When he made the sulh or the peace with the open enemy of Islam, that was for the betterment of Islam. A lot of people went ahead and questioned that. When you question the peacemaking of Imam Hasan, you're not questioning Imam Hasan's acts. Rather, you're questioning the views or the purification that Allah has given to Imam Hasan alayhi salatu wasalam. If you question Imam Hussein's act when he stood up against Yazid in Karbala, you're not questioning what Imam alayhi salatu wasalam had done. You're actually questioning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God forbid, was weak in His purification. And secondly, the last point that I want to make on this, that yes, if these people do believe that they were purified and so on and so forth, they were purified after the ayah was revealed. Ayah, as I said, was revealed in the 6th year of Hijrah. Prophet announces the nubuwwat some 18 years ago, 16, 17 years ago. So definitely he announced his nubuwwat prior to the verse of purification. But when does he announce the wilayat of Ali? He announces the wilayat of Ali 2 or 3 years after the verse of purification. So if you want to keep Prophet to be sadiq, if you want to keep Prophet to be tahir, then go ahead and question the nubuwwat of the Prophet, which he announced prior to the revelation of verse of purification. Do not question the wilayat of Amirul Mu'mineen, which he announced after the verse of purification. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad par. We see over here, and usually I like to talk about the Imam whom we are discussing, just so that we can understand some of the aspects of the lives of Imam, and as well as always learn and derive some lessons from it so we can also adopt it in our daily lives. Among the things which is a duty on the men and not on the women is that a double duty on the men is that when they listen or hear something and whenever they acquire some sort of knowledge, it is upon them to go ahead and also relay this knowledge to their households. We see this is not the duty upon the women of the house. Why? Because women usually did not attend the masajid. They did not attend the gatherings in the masajid back then. And therefore, when they weren't attending it, it wasn't upon them. They weren't listening to what Rasulullah was saying. It was upon the men who would hear something from Rasulullah to go home, not only apply that upon themselves, but also go ahead and relay this message which they had heard to the women of the house and the children of the house as well. So every single one of you who are over here, hopefully though your family is here, but if they're not here, it is your duty, whatever it is that you hear from this member, if it's something which is worth listening to, if it's something which increases your knowledge, that you have to go ahead and relay this information to your household. Why? Tomorrow you will be questioned. The women only will be questioned for what they had heard and they applied upon themselves. But men will be questioned if they went ahead and relayed the news to their household or not. So on that note, we see that this is coming directly from the Sirat of Masumin, and especially the Sirat of Imam Hasan. That Rasulullah would be on the mimbar. He would recite the revelation that was revealed upon him, and he would be explaining that to the people. And when he would come back home, or when Amir al-Mu'mineen would come back home, and he would want to inform Janab al-Sayyida about what Prophet had said, he said, every time I came back home after listening to the revelation, I found that Janab al-Sayyida already had the knowledge about that stuff. So I was always surprised. As to you didn't attend the gathering in masjid, every time I come back home, you already have the knowledge of what Prophet had spoke about. Back then, there weren't live streaming. Back then, they didn't have all of these facilities. How was he getting this knowledge? She replied by saying, your son Hasan, he hears the revelation, he runs home before anyone does, and he comes and tells me every single thing, word by word, my father has said. He said, after I hear this, after hearing this, Amir al-Mu'mineen said, I want to witness how Hasan narrates or relates what he hears. She said, he hears the thing and he relates it word by word. He could only be 5 or 6 or 7 years old at that time. Maximum 7, because when he's 7, Rasulullah left this world. But even at that young age, it shows that how Imam Hasan is amanatdar. He's trusting, or he entrusts the word that he listens from the mimbar, and he relates it exactly the same way to his mother. One day, Amir al-Mu'mineen says, I want to see how my son narrates to you. So he hides behind the curtain. Imam Hasan comes back home. And when he comes back home, وَقَدْ سَمِعَ الْوَحِي, when he had heard the wahi, فَأَرَادَ أَن يُلْقِيَهُ إِلَيْهَا, and he wanted to narrate this wahi to his mother. فَارْتَجَّ عَلَيْهِ, he started stuttering. He started shaking when he was speaking this day, particular day. فَعَجَبَتْ أُمُّهُ مِنْ ذَلِكَ, his mother, Janab al-Sayyida, was surprised by seeing this. He said, فَقَالَ لَا تَعْجِبِينَ يَا أُمَّا, do not be surprised, O my mother. فَإِنَّ كَبِيرًا يَسْمَعَنِي, indeed, someone elder is listening to me. وَإِسْتِمَاعُهُ قَدْ أَوْقَفَنِي, and his listening is something which is making me stutter and making me shake when I speak to you, or tremble when I'm speaking to you. Right away, Amir al-Mu'mineen comes out. خَرَجَ عَلِيٌّ فَقَبَّلَهُ, Imam comes out, hugs his son, kisses his son. وَفِي رِوَايَةٍ أُخْرَى, in another tradition, Imam Hasan says, قَلَّ بَيَانِي, my bayan has decreased. وَكَلَّ لِسَانِي, my tongue cannot speak. لَعَلَّ سَيَّدَ يَرْعَانِي, indeed, someone elder or my master is watching over me. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad par. So this is how Imam Hasan ﷺ, when he wants to narrate the wahi that he has heard, and when he wants to explain to his mother, but keeping in mind when someone elder is watching, how Imam ﷺ is keeping the respect and ihtaram of that person who's watching him. We see in the riwayat of Rasulullah, on many occasions, when Rasulullah would refer to Imam Hasan, he would say, Ashbahta khulqi wa khalqi, you are complete resemblance of me as far as my khulq is concerned, my character is concerned, wa khalqi, as far as my creation is concerned, you completely resemble me in all of those aspects. We look at that when Rasulullah, who's referred to as Sayyidul Mursaleen, Sayyidul Alameen, Awwaleen wal Akhirin, he's the master of the first ones, he's the master of the last one, he's the master of all of the Alameen, he's the master of all of the Mursaleen and all of the prophets. If this Sayyid, if this person who's Sayyid of all of these prophets calls upon someone and says, Inna ibni hadha Sayyid, this son of mine is also master, this son of mine is also Sayyid. At one point, you and I give titles to other individuals, but what importance do those titles have if I do not possess the same title? Rasulullah is Sayyidul Alameen, but when he refers to his son, he's also calling him to be Sayyid as well. He says, لَوْ كَانَ الْأَقْلُ رَجُلًا لَكَانَ الْحَسَنِ. If the aql could be in the embodiment of a person, it would be none other than the wujud of Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba alayhi salatu wassalam. Salawat biji Muhammad wa alim. We see also, as far as the ziyarat of Imam Hasan is concerned, that Imam Hussein, in regards to whom we recite ziyarat warith, we say, Assalamu alayka ya waritha Adama Saffatillah, Ibrahim Khalilillah, Nuh Nabiyillah, Isa Ruhillah, Musa Kalimillah. Why are we referring towards these Anbiya? When we refer towards these Anbiya, it is actually saying that all of these Anbiya are also longing for the ziyarat of Imam Hussein. They're waiting for the day until they can go ahead and do the ziyarat of Imam Hussein. That's why Imam is the waris of Hazrat Adam. Imam Hussein is the waris of Hazrat Ibrahim. Imam Hussein is the waris of all of these Anbiya, because they're all longing for the ziyarat of Imam Hussein. When all of the Anbiya of this universe are waiting for the ziyarat of Imam Hasan, but waiting for the ziyarat of Imam Hussein, but this Hussein, his wazifa or his duty or his act was that on every Thursday night he would go and perform the ziyarat of his brother Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba alayhi salatu wasalam. The whole world is doing the ziyarat of Imam Hussein and waiting for the ziyarat of Imam Hussein. You hear every year on Arba'een, millions of people go for the ziyarat of Imam Hussein. All of these millions of people. And then alongside with them, all of the Anbiya are waiting to do the ziyarat of Imam Hussein. Yet this Hussein, his way was that after the death of Imam Hasan, every Thursday night, he would go and perform the ziyarat of Imam Hasan. When a person like Hussein performs the ziyarat of Imam Hasan, for whom all the Anbiya are waiting, just imagine the status of Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba alayhi salatu wassalam. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad par. I wanted to talk about the ibadat of Imam Hasan as well. Very quickly, I'll go through some of these things so that I don't take too much of your time. That Imam Hasan, when it comes to the ibadat, we look at different aspects of Imam's life. One aspect of his life is definitely the ibadat that he performed. But before the ibadat, this is where we see how Imams are showing us the height and the importance of every single ibadat that they perform. Before Imam would even stand up to perform the biggest ibadat, which is in the form of salat, Imam would stand up to perform the wudu. This is the condition of Imam when he's performing the wudu. It says, Inna al-Hasan ibn Ali kana idha tawadda'a irta'adat mafasiluhu. When Imam Hasan would stand up to perform the wudu, his body parts, his arms would be shaking. وَاسْفَرَّ لَوْنَهُ. His complexion, the color of his skin would change due to that. فَقِيلَ لَهُ فِي ذَلِكَ. He was asked in regards to, as to why is the color of your skin is changing, why your complexion is changing, why your body parts are shaking, why is your wujud trembling when you're performing just the wudu, you haven't even entered into the bargah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam replies by saying, حَقٌّ عَلَى كُلِّ مَنْ وَقَفَ بَيْنَ يَدَيْ رَبِّ الْعَرْشِ أَنْ يَصْفَرَّ لَوْنَهُ وَتَرْتَعِدَ مَفَاصِلَهُ. It is indeed the right of Rabbul Mashriq wal Maghrib. It is indeed the right of Rabbul Alameen that anyone who stands in front of Rabbul Alameen, that their face complexion should change, their body should be trembling. They should show this fear that they're entering into the bargah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam Hasan, when he would stand up for salat, he would put on the best of the clothes that he had. Qama ila salat, labisa ajwada thiyaba. That he would stand up for the salat. He would put on the best type of clothes that Imam had. Unfortunately, we don't look at these little things from the lives of Imam Hasan, that he is paying such attention. Also in regards to Rasulullah, before he even go outside, he would go outside. He would take care of his clothes. He would take care of his hair. Before going outside, he would look into the water to see that he looks all right before he walks in front of the people. That shows that these little things are also part of the sirat of Masumeen. Unfortunately, in our societies, the most ascetic a person is, the worse their complexion would be. The most zahid a person would be, the worst type of condition that person would be living in. The face would be the same way. The libas will also be torn up and all that. No, this is the opposite of what Masumeen are teaching us. No, take care of yourself. When you're standing up for the salat, make sure you put on best of your clothing. That Imam Hasan, when he stands up, he says, "Oh, Imam Hasan, why do you put on such clothes? Why do you beautify yourself? Why do you apply perfume upon yourself?" He says, "Inna Allah jamilun yuhibbul jamal." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is jameel. He also prefers jamal and the beauty into the people. فَأَتَجَمَّلَ لِرَبِّي وَهُوَ يَقُولُ. I beautify myself, or I give embellishment to myself, and I do this zinat for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because he says, خُذُوا زِينَتَكُمْ in the kulli masjidin. Salawat biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. What is the demand of Imam Hasan from his followers? We need to understand, alongside with the seerah of Masumeen, as to what do they demand from us. What is it that they're asking from us? We can understand that from a few words of these Masumeen. Imam, at one point, he said, "Man talaba رضا الله بسخط الناس كفاه الله أمور الناس." And then on the opposite side, he said, وَمَنْ طَلَبَ رِضَى النَّاسِ بِسَخَطِ اللَّهِ وَكَّلَهُ اللَّهُ إِلَى النَّاسِ. Imam said, the one who satisfies Allah, although he might be discomfort, or the people might be in discontent with this individual, but Allah is satisfied with this person. Although the people might be dissatisfied with this individual, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will turn the affairs of the people back to this individual. In other words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will turn the hearts of the people who might be dissatisfied with this individual back to this person, because he was doing it only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to satisfy Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as opposed to the person who wants to satisfy the people by dissatisfying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Vakkalahu Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will leave the affairs of this individual in the hands of the people. Tomorrow on the day of judgment, you would be asking the reward from these individuals whom you were trying to satisfy, and not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah will say, don't come to me. Don't ask me for the rewards, because you were trying to satisfy someone other than me. We see over here that Imam is giving us this advice, and he's exhorting us that make sure you take care of contemplation. Contemplate as much as you can. He says, "Usikum bitaqwallah." I order you, or I advise you, for the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa idamat tafakkur, and the continuation of fikr and contemplation and pondering. Fa inna tafakkur abu kulli khairin wa ummuhu. Because tafakkur and contemplation is the father of all the goods there could be, and the mother of all the goods there could be. Think about before you do something. Make sure you ponder over it before you do something, because tafakkur and contemplation will lead towards prosperity and will also lead towards salvation. Salawat biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad par. Imam alayhi salatu wassalam, among the things that he demands from the people, and he's mentioning it beautifully in these ahadith that I'm reciting in front of you, that Imam says at one place, "Ajibtu liman yatafakkaru fi ma'qulihi, kayfa la yatafakkaru fi ma'qulihi." He said, I'm surprised at the person who takes care of his ma'qul, that which he eats, puts in his stomach, but he's not caring for his ma'qul, intellect. He's so worried about his stomach, but he's not worried about his aql. Why? Imam says, فَيُجْنِبُ بَطْنَهُ ما يؤذيه ويودع صدره ما يرتديه. He feeds his stomach only that which can be good for him because he doesn't want to fall sick. So he takes care of his makul. But when it comes to his aql, he's not. When it comes to his chest, when it comes to his heart, he's feeding whatever it comes in his hands. What is it that Imam is trying to refer to us over here? Imam ﷺ is trying to tell us that whatever you hear, wherever you get anything from, don't embrace it right away. Don't accept it right away. There's a fine difference between the knowledge that you received. Receive from the time that when you receive this knowledge, whether it is correct or whether it is not correct. And Imam also gives us a mayar. He gives us a scale to go ahead and measure the thing. He said the difference between haqq and batil is these 4 fingers. What are these 4 fingers? He said these 4 fingers are the difference between haqq and batil. Because when you place these 4 fingers on your face like this is the distance between ear and your eyes. He said what you hear from your ears is not always going to be the truth. But what you see from your eyes usually is the truth. So that is the distance between haqq and batil. Make sure you go into the depth of the things before you go ahead and pass any sort of just judgment. Last aspect of Imam's life, and inshallah we'll conclude with that, is the aspect of Imam's jood and sakha. That Imam was a generous individual, a generous person, to the extent that jood and sakha of Imam is still existing. That one thing we adopted as the followers of Masumeen or followers of Imam Hasan is the niyaz of Imam Hasan, the dastarkhan of Imam Hasan, where we invite people to come and eat with us, to dine with us for the name of Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba. Why? That is one thing that we have adopted. Whereas there's so many other ways that Imam was generous towards the society, even to the extent that when Imam didn't have anything, he did not shun the sa'il away, the person who came asking. There was a person who once came to Imam and he asked for something. Imam unfortunately didn't have anything to offer to this person. But Imam did not turn him away. He said, even though I don't have anything to offer you, but I'll tell you where you can get something from. He said, go to the Khalifa right now. And he's in grief because he has lost his daughter. Go to him and say these words that I'm telling you. He will go ahead and give you what you were coming to ask me. He will take care of you. Obviously, nobody could just approach the Khalifa in that fashion. Khalifa had lost his daughter and he was in grief. Imam taught a few words to this person. He goes to the Khalifa and he says to him, he said, Alhamdulillahi sataraha bijulusika ala qabriha wala hatakaha bijulusiha ala qabrik. That be thankful towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you are sitting on the grave of your daughter and she is not sitting on your grave without any guardian upon her. He hears this. He was in grief. He said, I've lost my daughter. He said, looking at the society of that time, he said, just thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you are sitting on the grave of your daughter and you are in grief and you are in mourning, lest your daughter was sitting on your grave without any guardian upon her head. We see that Imam ﷺ, even at that time, so the Khalifa obviously went ahead and took care of this beggar or took care of this sa'il who had come to knocking on the door of Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba. Look at the time. I want to talk about more in regards to Imam's life. One aspect of Imam's life which I want to discuss, but as I said, inshallah, I'll have plenty of opportunities with you guys. We'll discuss that if you want to demolish or if you want to hurt someone's character, the only thing that people used to attack was the attack of the marriages. And that was one thing where people wanted to destroy the image of Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba by associating a large number of marriages and the divorces to Imam Hasan. Don't have time to go into the details of that. Maybe inshallah at some other time. Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba lived a life where he got to live and he got to see the life of Rasulullah. He was able to see the time and the suffering of his mother. He was able to see the suffering for 25 years where his father was in silence. And now comes the time when Imam himself is seeing and facing the same sort of suffering. Imam ﷺ visited the graves of Rasulullah, visited the grave of his mother, Janab Sayyida. And when he came back home, his wife, Ja'da bint Ash'as ibn Jada bint Ashas, who was there, she went ahead and brought some milk to Imam. And when she brought this milk to Imam ﷺ, Imam drank this milk which was poisoned from before. And this was the poison which was ordered by the commands of Khalifa of the Sham, Amir Sham. He had asked this lady that if you go ahead and poison Hasan, who is becoming a difficult person for me and for my survival, I will give you a lot of gifts and I will also marry you with my son. She went ahead and she poisoned Imam ﷺ. But what did she get in the end? Even Muawiyah said that a person who could not be faithful to a person like Hasan, how will he be faithful to people like us? So he went ahead and killed that woman, Ja'da. But nonetheless, Imam was poisoned. This is where Farwa comes running to Imam. Qasim is only a few years old, couple of years old, 2 or 3 years old. She comes running to Imam Hasan, sees him in this condition right away. She sends Hazrat Qasim to go call upon the sisters of Imam Hasan. Qasim is merely a 2 or 3 year old child. He said, how will I be able to tell them? Janabe Farwa takes off the turban from the head of Qasim, rips a little bit of his clothes, puts some sand on his head, said, go in this fashion to your aunts and they will understand the whole story. Hazrat Qasim comes to the house of Janab Zainab and Kulthum, knocks on the door. As soon as the daughters of Ali who were getting ready to perform Salatul Shab, Salatul Layl, because it was very late at night, they saw this condition of Imam Hazrat Qasim. They started weeping. They said, what has happened to you, O Qasim? He says that my father is breathing his last breaths. My father is about to depart this world. Come with us till we can go ahead and bid farewell to my father. This is where Janab Zainab and Kulthum, they start weeping and they start crying. They come towards the house of Imam Hasan. As soon as they were about to enter the house of Imam Hasan told Farwa, remove that pot where I had drank that milk from. I don't want my sister seeing the blood of mine before I die or I leave this world. Allah, ajrukum Allah. Imam Hasan is so worried about that even he doesn't want his sisters to see the blood that came out as a result of the poison that Imam was given. At this point, Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba, he gathers all of his family members and he gives wasiyat to one after another. He says, after me, by the commands of Allah, this Hussein will be your Imam. Make sure you obey the commands of Hussein. Make sure you follow the steps of Hussein. Make sure you do not go against the teachings of Hussein. At this point, who is to console? Imam Hussein is also started weeping. But Imam Hasan said a sentence. What did he say to Imam Hussein? He said to Imam Hussein, Ya Aba Abdullah, La yawma ka yawmika ya Aba Abdullah. There's no day like your day, O Aba Abdullah. I'm going to die today and I will be buried. But when you will die, there's no day which could be compared to your day. But Imam Hasan probably was not aware as to what is going to happen to him as well. That the janazah of Imam Hasan was lifted. The few companions who were at that time lifted the janazah of Imam Hasan. Imam Hussein is leading this janazah. But is this the only janazah of a Muslim that walks and goes towards the graveyard but comes back without being buried? Because Imam Hasan had asked to be buried right next to Rasulullah. He said, bury me next to my Jad Rasulullah. But don't go ahead and force the issue. If you could not bury me next to Rasulullah, bury me in Jannatul Baqi. Imam Hussein tries a couple of times, but he could not take the janazah of Imam Hasan towards the grave of Rasulullah. He was forced to bring the janazah back on the last attempt, to the extent the Muslimin had gone that they shot arrows towards the janazah of Imam Hasan. To the extent when the janazah returns back to the house, that the sisters of Imam Hasan and the brother of Imam Hasan and the children of Imam Hasan are pulling the arrows from the janazah of Imam Hasan. 70 arrows have pierced into the janazah of Imam Hasan. One by one, they are piercing the arrows from the janazah. But unfortunately, The Zainab did not know that both of her brothers, their destiny, that they will see the arrows at the end of their life. Imam Hasan unfortunately sees the arrows after his death, but Imam Hussein faced these arrows or embraced these arrows while he was still alive. Zainab could go ahead and take out the arrows from the body of Hasan, but she will not have the same opportunity in the land of Karbala to be able to take out the arrows from the body of Imam Hussein. Ala lanatullah al-qawm al-zalimin. Wa sayalamu allazina zalamu ayyamun qalibin yanqalibun.